Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning.
Welcome to another episode of the City Barbers podcast, Heart of the City. As always, we're in the barber shop, downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Today, got my boy Sean
What's up?
and my girl Sam today. How we doing, guys?
Good.
Alrighty.
Real
Before we
good.
begin, Casey, as always, man, hit that intro. Alrighty, guys. Kind of to begin, I was kind of think of expectations versus reality. Mostly about the industry. Kind of when you were getting into barber school or getting into your first barber shop, what were kind of the expectations that you were kind of thinking you were getting yourself into, or what you thought was the focus going to be, versus, whether it's 3 years, 7+ years deep in the career, where is reality at today of like what's your priority, what you kind of think is the most important, or where you're kind of going for. Kind of starting with you, Sam. I know ultimately you and I have basically been doing it roughly the same amount of time.
Yep.
And I'm kind of curious of knowing that you went through school in a completely different state.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of what were your first initial thoughts of like what you're getting yourself into versus where you're at today?
I kind of just based on myself being like, okay, I can make my own, not like business, but my own brand, like be who I am in my own environment, be creative and have people appreciate that and kind of like grow from there. I knew starting off I would get 0 clients and I'd be sitting around trying to learn from other mentors or other people that I worked with, kind of ask them a bunch of questions. I knew that like maybe my first year I'd probably make, I don't know, maybe 20 grand. And I was like totally fine with it because I was like, I can only go up. So that was like my first initial thought when I started school. And I just really wanted to just do something for myself. I wanted something I was proud of, that I was giving to people and then kind of putting out there for everyone to enjoy.
Honestly, I think that's a pretty like well managed, expectation getting into the industry, though. Kind of understanding that, you say you start at the bottom and you kind of build up from there. Something that I always hear from students when we get them or when we're talking to them, it does feel, not that they're living in fantasy land, but they have really, really high expectations. And not always understanding that high expectations, come with high responsibility.
Yeah, I just knew like nobody knew me. So why would they come sit with me? So it was more of like, okay, if I can get them in my chair, I can give them a good time, and then I can like make sure that I give them what they want as well. Kind of connect with them and hope they rebook or come back. I just hope that for every single time. And yeah.
Did you have any maybe surprises that has changed from, first year or two in from where you're at now? Like any big differences?
I'd probably say my confidence has gone a lot greater as it does. But the biggest surprise for me was that people wanted my advice, which is really cool. To be like, oh, what do you think I should do? Instead of like, this is what I want. When you're new, like people are just like very specific. Okay, like I know you're new. It's exactly what I want. And you don't really deter from that, but it helps you grow like your platform of what you can do. But it was kind of fun. Probably like 3 years in, I had someone like drive like 4 hours to come and see me. And I thought that was like a huge honor. Because
Yeah.
I just like made sure I was always educating myself, going out and taking classes, making sure that like I was always practicing my craft all the time, which I still like to do. So.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Being able to get kind of maybe more competence and more knowledge of your craft and your brand that you're doing, and you have, hundreds into thousands of haircuts to kind of refine that more. And once you start hitting a couple years into it, that confidence, you've been there before, you can do it. And even if it's subconsciously with new clients, it kind of starts transitioning into these new clients like, hey, I'm here because of you. I want your specialty. More dealer's choice, or more, I'm here for your understanding of what's possible for, my hair and my head shape and what we're really doing.
Yeah.
Where maybe at the beginning, from, lack of knowledge is going to come across as maybe a little bit underconfident than where you're at today. Maybe less of that happened, of like the free will or those individuals coming in for your specialty of it all. Where now, it's that confidence is there. So no matter what kind of clientele multiple years with them or brand new, they're comfortable, almost instantly. And it's really can turn into that tailor-made, like what does Sam think is best for my look, my style, my head shape and hair growth pattern with it all.
It was cool because we had an apprentice where I was at, and if someone was like, hey, I want this haircut, and I was like, well, I kind of know how to do that, I would be like, hey, go wash their hair, and I would just be in the back like watching a video or just like doing some research or like something that was like same along the lines of that, and just using the tools I already had to kind of like make something. So it was so nice to just like be able to use that apprentice as somebody who could give me a breath to like make my shirts. I knew what I was talking about, which was really cool. But I'd probably say like my biggest like excitement of going into, because I did cosmetology first, was just to kind of like just do something creative. And I was like, that whatever I do, if I love it, it will take me somewhere where I'm supposed to be. And I just kind of always like never had like a huge expectation of where I needed to be, but I had an expectation of it would take me somewhere as long as I was like doing what I was supposed to do. So.
Yeah, I honestly felt very similar with that. When I went into school, when I was really starting, I really don't think I had like expectations of like what I was gonna, like where I was gonna be working, what I was gonna be making, everything there. It was kind of one of like, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
Reality is I'm at the very beginning. I put maybe 2 years of thought and a lot of YouTube and Instagram videos of watching as many haircuts and his technical side of it as all. So I felt I understood that I was at the beginning. Like I didn't have these wild expectations of like, all right, as soon as I'm licensed, I'm got my own brand, got my own self, I'm going to be making 6 figures, like that this is in the slightest bit easy. I felt like I knew it was going to be difficult, but I was ready to take on kind of that challenge. The reality of it all has been maybe more like on the personal growth. I don't think I thought this was going to be about like Ace as a person, just keep on growing and learning more things on a personal level that's going to translate into my actual craft.
Yeah.
I think the biggest expectation versus reality change for me was everything is so important on the technical side. Like it's the haircut and the haircut only. Like that's what those first 2 years leading me into the craft itself, that first little bit of school was just like, all right, it's all about cutting hair. How can I do that confidently? How can I do that, better and understand what I'm really doing? So all my emphasis was there. Pretty early on in school, where I was at, the owner and the master barber, he was like 94 years old, had 70 years of this craft, if you will.
You talking about Fletcher?
No, Mr. Height.
Oh, okay, I never met him, but
so I was his last class before he passed away. But he would always do a master barber class every day. You'd come in, you do your hour of theory, and then once that hour was done, you could go on the floor and start cutting. And then he had a voluntary, non-required master class right after. And most people didn't sit in for it. He was kind of, a lot of the individual, pretty young adults kind of in school, they kind of felt like, this old guy doesn't know what he's talking about, kind of done with the times. He's just kind of that crazy old man, which, comes with the territory, but it's one where, like, this guy's been doing it for 70 years. Like, who does anything for 70 years? Like, there's
wild.
something that this guy knows that clearly none of us know. Like, we're weeks in to even understanding what we're getting ourselves into. This guy's in his 90s, and he's literally been doing his whole life. Takes a little stint to, fight in Korea, and that's it. Like, that's literally all he was doing was being a barber in his whole life. Like, that's incredible. And the very first day being in that master class, he said one of my favorite things of the entire industry, and it's always stuck with me. And it's basically one of those is, there's 10 things to being a barber, and number 10 is cutting hair. There's 9 more important things. And I was so focused, as everybody is on number 10, the technical side. And it was kind of just one, like, when he said those things, like, inside, I was like, this is me. Like, those 9 other things, it was relationship building, it was service, communication, just the the character sides of being a high quality human being. You know, as soon as he said all that kind of stuff, it was like, this is me. Like, this is exactly who I am. Like, it just, I had that epiphany of like, I was meant to be behind the barber chair. Like, everything about it. Because 1 through 9, I felt like I already had it. Like, it just, how I was raised, who I was as a person. So it just, that really resonated. I was like, hell yeah, like, this is, now that I got this in the bag, but I was like, I'm doing the right thing. Like, that gut feeling was like, this is 100% where I'm supposed to be. And like, basically, this was my calling, if you will.
Like, reassured you that, like, okay,
Yeah.
it's the right spot.
Yeah, like this, everything was right. I was on that right path, on that right direction, that tailored to like my passion and my curiosity as a human being. You know, I needed that career. You know, when I was younger, you know, I always kind of joke. It was 2 things that stuck with me. I remember being like 7 years old, laying in bed, and being like, I want to be a businessman. I want a 5 o'clock shadow. Like, it was as dumb as that sounds, but it's like, that's what like was stuck in my head at like 7 years old, just laying in bed. And, you know, I guess perks of coming from, you know, a hairy family, the 5 o'clock shadow and the facial hair, I knew was coming. So I think I was just itching for that to speed up.
You've had a beard for a minute too, haven't you?
Yeah, I was definitely the kid in high school with a beard.
Wow, okay.
Dang.
So it's I knew it was coming. So even the 7-year-old Ace, I was
Could
ready.
feel it tingling.
Yeah, I was ready. But the businessman side, like, not that I know where that really came from, but I wanted kind of to do my own thing, to, I don't know, have that responsibility, but also have that impact on the world. You know, for whatever reason, like, I always wanted a positive impact on the world. I wanted to actually influence people for a more positive future, a better life. And I think I just realized that we spend so much time with work in our career. So I knew I wanted those to connect with one another, because I was going to be spending so much time working. Let's make sure that work is doing what I want, big picture. So that was always where my head was at. Not that I knew barbering was where I was going to start out or anything there, but you know, that businessman mentality, you know, just that life of it all, it really intrigued me at a super, super young age. But when I heard kind of that saying, it really resonated with me. But even at the time, you know, I didn't know this craft was going to be basically me just improving my habits and improving myself as a human being, whereas how I talk to people, how I, you know, take care of another person, how I service somebody, you know, the importance of, you know, providing, you know, a safe place where there's no judgment. Everything is just as open as possible. You know, when you're dealing with, you know, 45 hours worth of 45 different gentlemen every single week, you're going to have 45 different perspectives that sit in your chair. And I've always been one that I've enjoyed talking about the deeper things of this world. You know, small talk, if you will, it's not something that I want to do by any means. You know, if I got to weasel through a little small talk to get to the deeper stuff, like, it is what it is. But like, I like the deep stuff. Like, I like talking about what really gets us going. So I try to do that with as much of my guys and go as deep as possible as the person in the chair is willing to go. But I don't think I understood being a barber was just improving on all these personal aspects of yourself. And then that's what you are kind of relaying and giving to your clients. So I think that's been my biggest surprise that I just couldn't even think of at the time. I thought it was like, all right, let's focus on cutting hair and let's get better there. And again, I'm super spoiled to have really good education at the very beginning of my whole career here. So I think it made that number 10 easier, because I was like, all right, I got this. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I need time, but I felt really good with that skill. But yeah, 1 through 9 is always what has intrigued the crap out of me. That's really what I'm passionate about more than anything.
I feel like the industry has changed so much as well. Like, I feel like the modern day barber, I feel like we're more kind of like life coaches as well. Like, I feel like before it was just like in and out, sports TV, you know, just small talk like that. But I feel like in the past probably like 3-4 years, it's just been a lot of like deeper conversations. Like, just like thinking about me at the beginning, I was just like praying I gave them a good haircut and they would come back. But now I'm just like hoping I can get a laugh out of them or like enjoy a really fun conversation, and that fulfills me and them in the same breath as also making them get confident. And I love that. I think it's a great opportunity. We meet so many people, like you said. So
Love it.
And those people can be life coaches for us too. Like, we
Hell
take
yeah.
care of some like super successful people, and as like the journey goes on, you have these guys that you can just ask questions about anything. Like we got lawyers, we got doctors, we got finance guys. Like it really kind of, like you said, the personal growth part of it, getting these guys in your chair, really kind of, you're staring at successful people. So you see how these people are doing things, and it kind of makes you look in the mirror a little bit and be like, okay, like if I'm not happy doing this, maybe take some advice from this guy, this guy. Like we've got like you've probably got 400 or 500 clients total. So like those are so many different opinions and perspectives you can take and imply in your own life. Because if you don't have that, it's really like your own opinion of like what your life is and like what you could be doing. And if you don't take time to grow and learn and talk to other people, you're not going to get that. But I mean, we get that every day from all kinds of different people from all walks of life.
Yeah. Yeah. The perspective and experience that is sitting right in front of us is second to none. Now, I think about it from time to time. It's like, what other career or, job could you ever one-on-one with an individual where all you got to do is just talk about basically their story, their perspective, their life, whether that's business, family, personal, whatever it wants to be, but it's one like all we're doing is talking, and it's one-on-one. It is as intimate as it comes. Even I always kind of think, okay, what's kind of possible? It's one-on-one. You do like real therapy type of work. It's different. If you're the therapist, you're obviously there trying to unravel somebody's mind and their past and their psychology of like, all right, here's what we need to improve on. Or here's some new habits, new things that we can kind of grow on, and this basically helping them process these situations. And you're dealing with somebody's very vulnerable, intimate parts of their life, which is, incredible. Obviously, it's a very important career. But, it's also one where when you get to talk to somebody about the good, the bad, the ugly, the fun, the what are you listening to, how's your experiences been? Like, I just think in our setting, it's a broader possibility of what you're really going to be talking about. If you take it seriously, you can still talk about some hardships and be to that level. But we're not focusing on somebody's trauma and what they really need to process. If it can get there because you got the rapport, it could benefit there. It can very much help somebody in that level. But we're able to talk about everything. Their experiences of who they even are as a person and how they got there. And with all three of us, we obviously keep on growing, but like we're still really young compared to our average clientele, and learning from them. I mean, how spoiled are we to actually have that opportunity to learn from and to build that relationship with these people, and not to take advantage of it, just to take advantage for your own personal reason to like, all right, this guy's got 20 years of a career longer than me in life. How did you get there? What have you been doing? Like, I always love at this point, like I have one client I'm pretty dang close to that I see every single week, and just talking about, how do you, manage your employees? Like when things come up, like what are you talking about? And seeing somebody 20 years deep that I look up to as an individual, personally and with work, and just, sometimes it's very simple of what the answers are. But, one thing that always impressed me with how he communicates is like every single day, every single week, you are assessing the goals that you said you wanted to achieve, and you're basically like, what did I do today or what did I do this week to actually accomplish what I said I wanted to accomplish, and holding yourself accountable. These individuals, they hold themselves really accountable. They really put in that time and that discipline. They don't just wish for that better future. They plan it out. They really think about where they're trying to go, and every day they're assessing that and really making sure they're doing actions that get them to that goal. It's simple. We all had vision boards or goals. We've all been told that. We've all talked about it, in grade school, let alone, in your adulthood. But to see people that implement that day in and day out on a business level, on a personal level, it's fascinating to be able to talk to these many individuals, to just learn from and share their story with them, and grow as our own selves, let alone to be able to give them insight or give them perspective. I always joke is, Barbers were the original podcasters. It's just one of those where like all we do is talk. Yeah. All we do. I mean, when you're in these walls and when you're leaving it, you're just talking to another person. Like, you know, we don't have it set up and, you know, having a camera and, you know, the microphone's here, but it's just kind of the joke is it's just, you know, storytelling. You know, we're just sharing our perspective on the world, and you see so many more people gravitating towards podcasts and gravitating towards, you know, just stuff like this because you get real information, you get life experience, you get real perspective. At the end of the day, you know, nobody knows everything. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has the secret solution for everything. But when you listen to somebody for 30 minutes, let alone 3 hours, or episodes after episodes after episodes, even though you've never met that person, you get a pretty good idea of how genuine this individual is, what really, you know, motivates them, what they really care about. I think you can learn a lot about somebody by just listening to them.
And you're on a journey with them. If you cut them for multiple years, like, you see their life grow, good, bad, the ugly, and it's an honor to kind of be with them. You know, they come to you, they talk to you, vice versa, and I don't know how many other people that I know that aren't in an industry like this where they can actually have like a real conversation about like how they're doing.
Oh yeah.
On a daily basis. Like, I feel like we see our clients and they see us more than we see our families if we're not living around them.
Yeah.
So it's a place of refuge.
Yeah, 1,000%. And it's as simple as the human experience is, you know, having a community or having like 1, 2, or 3 people in your immediate circle that you trust, that you just know you can say your honest opinion, how filtered or raw as that may come out, and knowing that you're not going to be judged for it, knowing that you're not going to be criticized for it. Not everybody has one person in their life that they can be that open and vulnerable with. You know, I always kind of joke is, you know, most people, you know, kind of gravitate towards, you know, a serious relationship. You know, when you have that partner, you know, wife or husband, or just, you know, that lifelong partner, having somebody that you can share, like, your real opinion with, you know, how your day really was, what's really going on in your head, it means the world. Mm-hmm. But because if you don't have that, things, you know, can fester up. You don't process everything as well. You have different walls. You have different insecurities. If you don't have a safe place to really vocalize just your thoughts that are going through your head, I really don't think we need that many people in our life to be that intimate with. You don't need 100 friends that you can share all your dirty secrets with and be vulnerable with. But I do think there's a lot of value of having, you know, 1 to 5, if you will, of that circle that you just know you can share whatever goes on in your head, whatever you think's going on in the world, whatever things, you know, kind of going on, you know, in the country, in the state, with your family, with work, and just knowing that you're not going to be judged for it, knowing that you're not going to have repercussions for having an opinion. I think it goes a long ways with somebody's just psyche and process to be able to get those things out, and then, you know, you just move on. Like, it's just in one ear, out the other. You know, you make the best of that conversation, but you don't put stock and you're like, oh my God, this person thinks this about this politician. It's just like, there's too much of that. There's enough of that going around in the world with everything going on, you know, whether life, politics, war, religion, you know, there's sensitive topics out there, and, you know, having that conversation with a closed-minded stranger, it's awful. You can't have that conversation.
You got to be able to brush it off. You can't let it affect you. And
Got to dump it right afterwards.
Yeah.
Just move
but
on.
having someone or just a couple people in your life that you can have those conversations with, even if you do have different opinions, because you got the rapport, you got the respect with one another, like we do with, you know, our clients. When you trust them with your opinion, they trust you with their opinion, but you don't put stock in the difference. You know, you're almost more curious of how they got there or why they're there, or like you're able to compromise and find the middle ground and to have those things. Like, that's a healthy conversation.
Those are fun conversations.
Yeah.
I think.
If you got two open-minded people, it's
great. It broadens
great.
your mind too. Like, if you can't open it up a little bit, you don't have to agree, but it gets your brain thinking a little bit. I mean, that's just better off for you in the end. And
I agree. You'll go into the first question, you know, kind of with expectations versus reality of the industry. Is there anything that kind of stood out to you, like when you were getting into, whether it was school or getting into, you know, like cutting on the floor at an actual barber shop? You know, do you have any of those changes?
I think I was kind of like you. I didn't really know what to expect going into the industry. Money wasn't a thing for me. I came from an industry working 3,000 feet underground that I was making great money. So coming into this, it's like, first thing I talked to Pops about was like, this isn't about money for me. Like, this is 100% what I expect or want out of this is a quality of life change. I was doing something that added no value to my life. Yeah, I made good money. I had nice things. But you'd go to work and you had a production goal and you just try to hit that goal. If you hit that goal, great. If not, try again tomorrow. So like coming into barbering, I just really wanted to add value to my own life, and I wanted to add value to somebody else's life. And so what better way to do that than making somebody feel good about their appearance? And I guess it's definitely added so much value. Like, I've grown so much as a person. I've come out of my shell a little bit. Like, I'm kind of an introvert, so like you got to be able to talk to these people, and it's really grown how I can have relationships with other people. And probably on the reality side of it, obviously I've gotten that value, and I just want it to keep going up. Same thing with you, like continuing to grow as a person and being able to be around like these types of people is just gonna kind of keep that path going. But the reality of it is, like, it is hard work. Nothing's guaranteed. Money's not guaranteed. You're not cutting hair. You're not making money. Obviously, we want to make money, and money still isn't like the most important thing to me. But if you don't continue to grow, then that value is probably going to stop somewhere. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'm still pretty new into this, so I still got a lot to learn. But definitely, nothing's guaranteed. So you got to show up every day, and you got to show out. Because like I said, in my last industry, like, you could show up and have an off day and you're going to make X amount of dollars. And if you show up here and you don't show out, like, you're probably not going to make money, and you're probably not going to be happy at the end of the day. And that value kind of goes out the door. So I think the value of life and what you can give to another person and receive in return was probably my biggest expectation. And thankfully, that cup has, as of now, been filled, and I just hope it continues to be filled.
That's awesome. And it's kind of, to the reality of, being a barber, whether it's year 1 or year 7, you got to constantly be growing and improving. When you're at the beginning, it kind of makes sense. You're like, all right, I'm at the beginning. Obviously, I'm only sky's the limit from here. I got to, keep on going up the hill. Year 7, even if you do have, say a full clientele, or you're consistently really busy, and even if you should be very proud of what you've created, I always say, even if you've been cutting the same person for 6 years, they get normalized to what you've done. Even if it is the greatest service, cut, communication in your area, that person's been getting that for 6 years. Like, it's pretty normal, even though that quality's there. And whether traveling or life comes up and they end up sitting with somebody else, whether in the same shop or somewhere else with it all. I've had so many conversations with guys, with my clients, that for whatever reason, got a haircut somewhere else. When they come back, it is always just like, Ace, holy shit.
And that's the best feeling ever.
Yeah. It's just like, I appreciate you so much more than I ever thought, just because you're able to now compare it against something again, and you're like, it could be the simple things. It could easily be just, the communication. It's for sure a lot of the time the actual, like, consistently high quality haircut, because at the end of the day, that's what you're going in for, especially if you have to go outside of your normal barber. You're going for the haircut. So you're doing that. So that obviously stands out if you're not getting something of what you're used to. But, little things of, just guaranteeing, clean tools. That's not always everything in the industry, unfortunately.
It's an overlooked aspect of it.
Very much. I've just seen, like, hair's all over the place. It's unorganized. Simple things of drape control. Understanding, that, if they're sitting in my chair, everything's nice and tidied up. Like, nothing's going to be getting on them. But then they leave elsewhere. Drapes weren't perfect. Things were misaligned. You get hair over your leg, let alone on your arms, let alone on the neck. Everything's there. Like, those things stand out when you go somewhere that isn't to the same level of what you're used to. My joke is always, every 5 years, I'm going to force all my clients to go somewhere else, just to experience it, just to make sure I am growing and improving.
Kind of keeps you honest a little bit.
For sure.
But
But
keeps
this
them
one where like,
honest, too.
hey, I actually went somewhere and, you got some room to work on. Like, all right, that's an honest thing I can have. But,
Yeah.
Obviously just a joke on that one, but it is rewarding when they come back and they say those things of how much they can appreciate, whether it's the quality and consistency, you name it. But even with those, it made me realize with those people, even though they love what I do, you do get normalized to that quality. So even if it's the best version that they've ever received, or you're doing the best quality barber in your area, you got to keep on growing. You got to keep on improving and finding new ways to give it even better, even more. Whether that's through new techniques, new possibilities, because styles change, and it's so comfortable for a client to be able to sit with the same person that can have, whether it's short hairstyle, full hairstyle, trying new stuff, growing stuff out, going even shorter. Like, to be able to change your hairstyle, and not only to accomplish that, but to be able to communicate it with foresight of like, all right, this is what we want to try, this is what we got to do. And I think that's an underrated thing with a lot of barbers, is if you're able to cut any hair length, any texture of hair with any style, because people want to change things every once. Obviously, there's a lot of steady eddies out there that it's just
And your hair, just texture, growth, color,
yeah,
density
densities.
changes
My hair
over
has
5
changed
years.
so much since 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I've had to switch up styles.
Yeah.
But being able to communicate that to your client too is a big thing, and them communicating it to you is just part of building that relationship and that trust.
Yeah, I love that. You had a really good question that you kind of mentioned, a little earlier.
Yeah. So you guys have obviously been in the industry longer than me, and you've built good habits, and you've kind of put everything you've had into your craft. And I mean, the benefits have shown. Like, you guys have full books for the most part. You're always busy and very talented in the technique and craft of cutting hair. What's something at this stage in your career, because I feel like everybody's got to have like a little goal or like a next step. What's something that you are kind of working on right now to kind of take that next step, whether it be like building your brand, something you want to learn technically, or just something as simple as like how you greet somebody at the door? Or like I was telling Ace, like I'm really trying to be better when like I give something to somebody, like a water. I used to just say things like, oh yeah, you bet, or like sure. Like I'm really trying to be like, you're welcome. Like, what else can I get for you?
My
Like,
pleasure.
yeah, just like being,
It works.
giving, just giving that
difference.
little extra oomph of effort, and just having that kind of mental note to be better in that way. Because like the more I do it, it's just going to become a habit. So something as simple as that, but like that's kind of something I'm working on right now. It's small, but hopefully it becomes more of a habit. So like, yeah, what's something that you kind of are trying to take that next step in life, career, technique, whatever?
I would love to, like, I love teaching, but I want to be a better educator. Like, I can teach you, show you certain things, but I want to be like a more verbal educator, know how to like use my words and my verbiage and my presentation of myself a little bit better. That's my big goal for next year. And then probably on my day-to-day basis, I'm always watching like barber videos every day before I come into work, because even if I've seen that haircut multiple times, there's always something I learn, whether it's a consultation, have a better consultation. That's another thing. Like, I was really good at the beginning, and I've kind of haven't been doing that as much because I can visually see what needs to get done, and I feel like we communicate well, but I want to be able to kind of give them the extra 30 seconds, minute and a half, kind of give them that space to kind of give me what I need to make our whole experience together a little better.
I feel like when you have the same client coming in, kind of the same thing, like you normalize the process.
Same as usual, yeah.
Yeah, you get and it's hard to not get complacent. So
Yeah.
who knows if that person wants to change their haircut, but every
You
time they
almost
come
assumed
in,
that we're doing the
there's
same
like, oh,
thing.
we're doing the same thing, and then maybe they have an internal heart attack, and they're like, oh yeah, and they aren't brave enough. So like, that's probably where.
Yeah, I started asking a few years ago. I'm like, well, how did it grow out? Like,
Yeah.
was there anything that's bothering you that we can fix this time? Or how's it been working? Is it easy to style? Just kind of stuff like that to kind of open up the door for them to be like, oh, I'm having a hard time styling it this way. And then I can kind of give them pointers so that they're set out for success if they want to go home and kind of still do that same look, or if they want to do it a little different. So.
Yeah. I want to touch on kind of both of you guys first before I kind of share maybe my goals of what I'm really focusing on. And especially with you, Sam, with having the more instructor and educator being a desire for yourself. I always think of, if you can't communicate what you're doing, you don't really 100% know everything that you're doing. You need to be able to, verbalize it and communicate your thought process and what you're really doing with it all. So I love that that's kind of maybe your next career.
Well,
really
you're really
focused.
good at it. You're good at explaining. You have like a subject, and you're good at explaining it from multiple different sides. And I'm decent, but you're really good. And so I'm like, I just really want to be able to kind of get to that level.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome, kind of goal for you to have, and I'm definitely gonna lean into that and have you help a lot and have you use a lot, especially with apprentices and everything kind of going forward there. So
Yeah.
I love that for yourself, and I love that I can take advantage of what your goal is as well. I'll hold you accountable.
Please do.
Kind of to yourself, I love, it's the small things. Without a doubt, it's the small things. When people do say thank you, the my pleasures, going above and beyond for those little stuff there, making sure you're taking that extra second to make sure the drapes are perfectly lined up and in control there, communicating, what you're doing next so they're aware of, when we're spinning, when we're moving you around, when you're laying you back, just like those little things of you're navigating, I don't want to say controlling, but you're navigating that person through our process and through your process of it all. If you don't communicate that beforehand, you're leaving the individual to assume, question. They might, because some people just like take it in and just like, hey, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do. So they don't really fight it. But there's other people that are like, oh, we're spinning us around. Like, oh, we going to the wash bowl? And like, if you could have taken 5 seconds earlier of just like, hey, let me spin you around real fast. I'm going to grab us a hot towel. You can give me 1 second or anything there. Just be able to communicate what you're about to do. It really controls and navigates that whole process even smoother. When you're leaving, making sure we are holding the door open and shaking their hand and looking them in the eye and thanking them. It is those little things of customer service and really communication is what sets you apart. That's what really, I think, stands out to an individual basis. We all want high quality service everywhere we go. And generally speaking, it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're at a fast food place, you're at a store, even if you're at a decently nice restaurant, at least for me, I definitely have high expectations or wants with my, service that I'm seeing is not usually impressed. I can't tell you how many times you go to a check stand or you go into a store, you're going to go pay, and they don't say anything. They just like look at you, and you're just like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
It's like, this is your store, not mine. Just little things of being able to control that conversation or navigate the client through, this is our house. These clients are coming into our house. We better know how everything's ran, how things operate. We're in control right now. We're the party planners, if you will. So you got to be able to kind of take lead. If we're all dancing with our clients or with your customer, whether you're at a store or a restaurant, you're the lead of that dance. You need to know what's next and then know what's next after that and be able to communicate that in a good kind of manner.
Confident way too.
For sure.
It
That's
builds
going to show them
confidence.
like, okay, this guy's in control. Like, he's not afraid to
And he gives confidence.
throw me
in
around
them.
a little bit
Yeah.
or anything. Yeah.
We all love high quality service. Every single person on this entire planet loves when somebody like knows what they're doing, really good at their job, communicates it really well, makes you feel like a king. We have that opportunity to do it. There's, the saying of, it really doesn't matter, what you look like, what you do for a living, and none of that stuff really matters. What really matters is like how you make that person feel. That overall feeling is what they remember. That's like the biggest thing that everybody takes home with it, whether it's a stranger, a friend, a parent, a loved one. How you made that person feel or how they felt once they left. That's what everybody remembers. There was this cool study that I was listening to somebody else talk about is, those big like farm kind of silo drums where no like data, no Wi-Fi, like no signals can enter it. Basically, it's like this metal silo, so they can do like very, high quality studies to see like vibrations and what everything means. So they would do a vibration measure or an energy amplifier measuring machine, and they would have individuals or sounds of like sadness, like really sad things going on, people crying. Basically, at what scale did that energy meter kind of tick up? And they would do love, they would do all these kind of things, and it was just like, all right, like obviously the more positive that energy that was kind of being portrayed would go higher and higher. And the common thought was like love's going to be the highest. Somebody, when you just have that like deep love in life and with family, a child or anything there, that was going to be the highest, say, number, but it wasn't. The absolute highest number that they showed was somebody that came in with like authentic passion. So it was really showing like authenticity, like you being yourself, not what you think the world wants out of you. You're not making decisions on behalf of anybody else. But like if you were actually expressing your just true, honest, authentic passion of life, that was the highest basically energy level. I don't know if this is like electromagnetic field or what, so I don't know what the correct thing would be. But it's like basically authenticity was the highest measure of it all.
I think I recognize that at a young age with like just being in schools. You could totally tell what teachers were passionate about what they taught.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just like, it made you want to learn. Like I had an economics teacher. I hated economics, but he was so passionate about it. I was like, this class is great.
Yeah.
And then I just learned everything.
Yeah.
But all my other classes that I actually was like interested, that they were just kind of just going through the day to day, it wasn't even fun. Even though I knew they knew what they were doing, but like his energy and his passion and just love for it just like made me really like it. And having that confidence in yourself with that, it just like, it makes you feel good because you're like, oh, I got this. If he's got it, I got it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, more recently, I wouldn't even say it's a goal, but it's more like a realization of like how impactful and important, authenticity, really is. Especially, I mean, for anybody, but for us, we're one-on-one, we're face-to-face with our clients, with these strangers, to have this really authentic experience with somebody and to give that to somebody. I think that's a profound tool that maybe we're just discovering as human beings of how important that really is. So I wanted to share that, but kind of me personally, kind of my goals at this point, kind of two. The first one, those commercials where you see, I think it's like for home insurance or something like that, where basically the kids are turning into their parents. Yeah. Where it's just like, once you buy a house, you start turning into your own parents. It always makes me think of that because my whole life, my dad, love him to death, and he would always talk about careers and everything there. If he talked to a young person, he would always, he's had 2 different 20-year careers, had great impact on the community and everything that he's doing. He's a successful person. He's a great person, but it's one where he always jokes, like, I'm 60 years old and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I get older. And I've liked that because it kind of put things into perspective of like, hey, you're 18 or you're 23. Like, it's okay if you don't know what you're going to do forever.
Yeah.
Because it's going to change. But, take it from somebody that's 60 years old and has only been having careers his whole life. I'm still changing and doing stuff on it all. So it's just one of those where the older I get, I am absolutely turning into my dad. Like, it's so, I never thought this was going to happen. And it's funny because we got 3 older brothers, and we all have there's some that are like, oh, you're very much like my dad, you're very much like my mom, or anything there. And I'm a good mixture of it all, but I would say more of my, like, interests and what I'm focusing on, as I would argue, out of all 4 boys, I'm the closest to kind of that version of my dad. Sure, he was a detective for 20 years, he's been a judge for 20 years, but the number one thing that he always talks about is he's passionate about people. He's passionate about building relationships, building rapport, really connecting with, human beings, if you will. And I think that's been a big expectation and reality shift for me, is I knew how, obviously we're working with a person, I knew that was important, but I didn't know how much my curiosity and passion was actually about the person in the chair. It was about, cutting hair and being a barber and doing like the craft itself, but I didn't know I was going to start being curious and almost obsessing over like the relationship side of it all. How I like to kind of share to paint a picture is, when we're younger, your kind of mind is like, all right, this is the goal I'm trying to achieve. So like all my emphasis is on basically the prize or the goal of what I'm working for. Then you get a little bit, more mature and you realize like, okay, it's actually not about the goal. It's about the pathway and the journey that gets me to that goal where I learn everything and kind of grow on it all. And then I would say is like you actually evolve a little bit more past that. And like it's not just about the journey along the way. It's really the people that you meet along the way of that journey that really like imprints in your soul, like imprints in your life. You can give up on, it's going to suck, but you could give up on a house, you can give up on a car, you can give up on, memories, you can give up on, tangible things, even though it could suck, but like you could give up on that and move on from it. Life lessons that you've gone through, as much as it sucked in the moment, you can kind of move on from it and you look back and you're just like, oh yeah, that was a hard time, but glad I went through it, and you kind of moved on. But moving on from individuals that you had like a really intimate relationship with, that's really hard. People either won't move because you're either giving up on your circle, your family, your loved ones, or anything there, or when you do move, you're probably not really missing the restaurant that you loved. You're not really missing the amusement park or the sports team. As much as it's fun in the moment, you're really missing that friend that you had for 20 years. You're really missing like the people. So just focusing more and more on connecting on a more intimate relationship wise, like just focusing on the person in front of me is very much always been a goal, but like that's been like my main emphasis of like how can I really build a relationship with this person in front of me. That's why I really like doing, I do the Rotary Club because of that reason. Like it's all about just relationship building and communicating with individuals and to get more experience on there, have a different pool from it. We're spoiled in the sense that, we clients sit in our chairs. So we're getting, 45 plus people a week that you're able to, build that relationship with. And that's what we do for a living. But I had that itch to like, I needed more of it. Like I wanted more of that kind of real relationship of it all, like real friendship on it all. So that's always been, I'd say like a goal or a focus of mine is focusing more on like the actual relationship side and the rapport side with the individuals in my chair. And then the next goal, and it kind of goes to what we talked about at the beginning, is it's improving my own like personal discipline in my own personal life. I'm very proud of my craft, and I wish I could sit in my own chair, like type of situation. Like I really love like the barber that I am, and I always have. But it's like, how can I improve on that? It's like, well, I got to improve on myself. One of my favorite, I wouldn't even say life coaches, but favorite people that I've ever listened to, I always read their quotes and ever listen to, is Jim Rohn. And, Jim Rohn, one of his famous sayings is, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Like that's basically his key to success, is work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And it was kind of one I've heard 1,000 times, but it just kind of clicks of like, all right, I've put all this emphasis on my job and my craft, where it's like, all right, now it's fully focused on me as an individual. And it's everything. It's the daily habits. It's waking up with a better morning routine. Eating really healthy. Knowing what that looks like for myself, and it's improving on that. Just knowing what I'm putting in my body, what I'm not putting in my body, what I'm putting in my head, what I'm not putting in my head. Being consistent with like my physical health and really putting emphasis on that. Stuff like cold plunging and going everything there. Like none of these things are easy, and having those daily habits, wouldn't say they're fun, but it's one where just knowing like this is how I grow, this is how I improve, is really just doing more that I did yesterday and just keep on improving that and improving on that. So that's really been like my biggest focus, is how can my individual self just keep on doing more and improving on there, because I know that's going to translate into my craft. So that quote really of just, basically put more effort on building yourself than you do your job, has really been my big focus, and what I'm kind of having in front of me right now to kind of push me to grow and to be a better version of a barber and a better version of myself.
I like it.
Yeah. I've been trying to get more in tune with myself as well. Having a different routine in the morning, kind of switch that up, meditating more. It's been great. feel like a little bit more centered and not just kind of like grasping at like, all right, what's the day going to bring, you know? And I've usually always just been like, all right, let's get up and do it. But now I can kind of like set a presence for myself to bring into the day instead of like me just going into the day.
I think
It's been great.
putting effort and growth on what's within. And I think with that being the focus, I'm going to say that's what authenticity is really improving yourself on the inside. So then when you give yourself outward, you're giving that authenticity away. So you're really improving the inside, version of yourself to do that. So that's definitely been a big focus.
And it's super refreshing to be around people like that every day who have that, like those mindsets and stuff. Because I have worked around people who every day you get to work there. I say it all the time to my clients. The thing I heard the most working in the gold mining industry was, I hate my life, I hate my wife, and I hate my job. And being around that for years on end, even if you're happy with your own life, like it just drags on you. And
Good
it
luck.
gets to the point where it's just like, okay, maybe I hate my life. I don't have a wife. I hate my job. So it's like, it gets suffocating. So to be able to be around people, not only that you work with, but that you have in your chair, that have these good disciplines and good habits, and it just really makes you want to be a better person. And if you're surrounding yourself with those types of people in all different areas of life, personal or career, if you're not growing, then it's all on you at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just shows, how, and we've all heard it 20 different ways and 20 different words of, your environment is the biggest influence on you. And it's, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Yeah. You're the sum of the 5 closest people of your life.
You are who you hang out with, like that
For
cliche,
sure.
but it's true.
Yeah.
1,000%. And, which we've all seemed to realize, especially through this conversation, but it's one where being a barber, being in this industry, there are multiple environments out there. Not saying every barbershop has that high quality all the time. Employees are different. Your barber, are different. Your clients are going to be different for sure. But, at least with us, with, our shop and how we operate, I mean, we are surrounded by just a high quality environment with such a high majority of every person, client-wise or barber-wise or owner-wise, that walks through this building, and just seeing, one, how lucky we actually are. Because if you stay here for long enough as a barber, you're going to start learning from your clients. You're going to start learning from the barbers around you and the owner around you. And, you basically grow or get out. It's, to say that as kindly as possible, but that's more or less how the city brand works. You're going to have to grow. You're going to have to adapt. And, everybody has their own, path on this life. Everybody has their own journey, and everybody has their own, stop at the bus station eventually. Reality is reality. It's not necessarily about that, but it's really about, as a barber, are you continuously growing as an individual? If you're continuously growing as an individual, your craft is going to be growing, your clientele is going to be growing, just your life is going to be growing, that passion is going to be growing, maybe as an overall industry, expectations versus reality. The reality is you got to have a growth mindset to be a barber. To be able to survive a decade, to be able to survive having hundreds of clientele that depend on you, it's you have to be able to grow and improve. So I would say, as an overall, whatever your expectation is when you're getting into the industry, reality is get ready to grow. Get ready to improve.
It's a grind, like I said on the couple podcasts ago. Like, it's a slow burn, and I don't think a lot of people expect that, and they want it now. That's just the world we live in. It's a convenience-based world. Everybody wants something just like right now. Like, they order food, they want it now. So it's like, if you don't have the patience to just, like I said last time, buckle in, you're not gonna have a fun time.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to. Self-awareness is a huge thing. Got to be able to look yourself in the face and be like, no, like, you're not doing this right. Like I said, something as simple as just making sure you're telling people you're welcome. Like, I've always felt like I've had good manners. My mom taught me to have good manners, like eating around a table. But just something as simple as that, just a minor tweak, even if it's only 0.5% of a tweak, you just keep doing that with like certain little things, and everything's gonna just continue to grow off of that. But
And even if they're not in a shop like that right now, just kind of bring that to the shop. you know?
Oh yeah.
Just be that example, be that person that's going to make people go, huh,
Yeah.
you know? Like, I was in a shop before and they always had so in-depth conversations, and I was always so surprised at how like meaningful every conversation was while I was there. And it was just good camaraderie, jokes, laughing, but also there was a deep core of like appreciation and acceptance and just making people great on their way out, better than they were. And I just love that. And if you're not in a shop like that, I feel like you should just do that. Like,
Yeah.
work on it every day. It's not going to be overnight, but just like the little my pleasures, or thank you so much for sitting with me, had a really great time, hope to see you again, enjoy your weekend, just little things like that,
Yeah.
instead of all right, see you next, you know.
Even when I was an apprentice, I got tipped by a guy just for saying hello to him, and I'm sweeping, and he just was like, I mean, it was the holidays, but he was just the way I greeted him. You know, I'm not going to be cutting his hair, I'm sweeping, I'm folding towels, and I just said hello to him, and he just threw me a $50 bill for saying hello. And it's sad that, it's not sad, but you don't get that a lot in the world anymore. So for somebody to see that and give me $50 just for saying hello, like, I was grateful for it, but it's just those little things.
Even just a smile, you know,
Yeah.
walking down the street.
I think it just shows like how valuable, how you make somebody feel, how far that really can go. Like, we don't know what anybody's going through, and you know, just something simple that, you know, it might have just been an appreciation, it might have been having a rough day, and like this makes you know feel pretty good. But it's going back to, you know, how you make somebody feel is absolutely everything. You know, and I always kind of share, if you're doing that with your craft, with your clientele here, without a doubt, you should be doing that everywhere you're at. What doesn't matter where you're at. You're at, you know, restaurant with your family, with, you know, out in public, at random stuff, at stores. You know, that's something that I feel like I learned really early is, you know, you're the same person behind the chair as you are outside the shop. And that's something that I've always take a lot of, you know, just care and pride into is, you know, I want somebody after they interact with me, even if this is a grocery store, this is as in the wild as possible, as away from the barber chair as you could ever find me. I want that person to leave like, oh, you know, whether thanks for, you know, opening the door for a stranger, you know, just smiling, just like having that like good, positive, but authentic energy. I think it goes to kind of going back to being authentic. Like, if this is who you are as an actual person, you know, you've created that, you've cultivated that behind the chair, or this is who you are as a human being. When you're out in the real world and you're just meeting strangers for one time, you're never going to see that person ever again in your entire life, but they still leave that interaction with like a positive feeling. Like, for me at least, like that really gets me excited. Like, that's something I really care about.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of going to that authentic self and being the best version of myself. It's like, it's not just behind the chair. No, if I see a client out in the real world, I want them to feel like that's the same ace that they've sat with always. Or if it's a stranger that doesn't know me, never seen me before, never going to see me again.
Potential client.
For sure.
Yeah.
You never know. You know, it plants that seed. You know, I'm one of those people where, you know, I've always, whether it's, you know, dressing or look, you know, just, you know, smiling, just that energy, you know, I want people to feel something, basically, if they ever have an interaction with myself. You know, it's one where I always joke, like, I'm always in work mode. You know, if I'm not in work mode, you know, I'm chilling at home and I'm able to relax. But I'm still, I want to be the same thing because obviously, you know, family deserves the best version of yourself more than anybody.
Yeah.
But it's one where, like, I really enjoy interacting with individuals that I don't know, let alone clients that do leave with a positive impact, with a positive feeling with it all. But I really think that goes to your authenticity and goes to, you know, the effort that you're putting in to your personal discipline, which is without a doubt going to translate into, you know, your craft itself. You know, I'm a big believer that we all have like an electric, magnetic kind of energy coming off of us. You know, whether you want to call it, you know, energy, vibes.
You can feel it. And
It's a real thing.
Huge thing.
Oh, yeah.
And going through the, you know, the silo little, you know, study that I was saying about, like, it's clearly a real thing. Like, you feel somebody else's energy, and to just keep it positive and high quality and authentic, you know, it resonates. Like, people feel it.
And we're in a small space, so one person's energy is off, and I mean, you guys
Yeah.
know just
Yeah.
as well as I do. It can throw things off real
Yeah.
quick.
It for
and
sure does.
Yeah, I think we all just kind of like didn't know what to expect, but had some idea. But I think as a collective, I think we all didn't really expect how much that we would grow as a person and we would help other people grow and kind of just be there for people more than just like us enjoying our craft, like the one out of 10 things
Yeah.
that we're really passionate about. But I don't think until you're in it, I don't think you actually truly understand like how much of impact you have on yourself, on your client, on your community. It's really big.
Yeah. I think it show if you can use like the barber industry as a metaphor for life, that's I think that's kind of our potential that we have for this industry. It is all aspects of life. Like if you can understand what it's like to really be a barber and to grow and improve on all of that, and just your impact on other people and your impact on the world. If you took the barber away from it, but you just applied that to like an individual and just life as its own, it's a slow compound effect of just growth and improving and learning from mistakes and that hardship, and understanding how much impact you actually do have on other people, whether it's family or friends, and just like who we are as an actual human being and kind of why we're here. I really do feel, I've always said that I think this is the most well-rounded craft that you can be in, because it just hits on every little note of it all. But it's like you put life in a bottle, it's almost like a little ecosystem of what it's like to be a barber. So I think that's a pretty powerful tool for ourselves because we're just being consumed by it. But I think that's a great metaphor for just people in general, because it really is that just steady compound growth on top of another, and using life experiences to keep on growing and keep on improving and becoming more of your kind of authentic true self. You strip away the insecurities or the influence outside, but it's like that takes time. Like it doesn't just happen overnight ever. It doesn't just happen, you just wake up and you're that person that you're always authentic, you're always truthful, and you're always positive. Like it's just a consistent kind of growth on it all.
I think it also, like, growing up, you see successful people, and it's almost like they're an object sometimes. It's hard to think of them as human.
Yeah.
Like unattainable kind of.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
we've got successful people that come in, and I used to think like, oh, this dude's like a heart surgeon. I'm a small town dude from Nevada. Like, what do I have in common with him? Like, and just having those real relationships and conversations, it just really humanizes a person and being able to relate to a person who is very successful kind of shows you that you're not far off. And if like there's a blueprint right there, take it, take his advice or whatever, or just shows you that we're all people at the end of the day, and we're just trying to like get through life. And you can be successful too, and they're just people too, but they just might have different habits or whatever it was. But
it's like everything is attainable if you're willing to put in that work that they've put in. And you just understand when you're talking to these people is finding what we have in common, even though we're completely different backgrounds. But you also understand of like the amount of work and effort that individual put in to get where they're at. The saying is always, once you become a master of one, you become a master of all. Where it's you just understand like what it takes to master something. You've put in thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of hours into something just to understand like what it takes. And you understand, okay, if I want to now, be great at this skill or have this possibility, I can do it, but I have to be willing to go through, those hours and that journey to actually achieve that.
And to take it to like a sports analogy, I hear like the Utah Jazz coach say all the time, like the separation between wins and losses a lot of the times is very, very minor. And those minor things that you can turn into good habits can turn, if you feel like your life's a loss or you're losing a lot, like sometimes it might just be one or two things you got to flip and switch to get on that positive like trajectory. And then you're not as far off as you think you are.
Sometimes it's just a mind shift. Just shake it off and just, shake it off.
And you could do everything right, and then you might still get a loss, but maybe next time things are different for you.
Yeah.
I agree. Awesome, guys.
Cool.
Well, I appreciate both of you guys for coming on in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, it was good.
Thanks for having us.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again for watching another episode of City Barbers. Casey, thanks as always for coming on in and making all this happen.
Come book with us, City Barbers. Sean Cuts, Utah.
We'll see you again. Thank you.